Jim, and later this afternoon I'm going to be doing my podcast. The name of the podcast is, Can I Drink My Protein? And we're going to answer that question for you. I want you to know that every morning in my coffee, I do use a liquid protein. This is the one I choose. I will talk to you later about why I choose that one. But rather than putting milk and some kind of monk fruit or some kind of sweetener, I just use a protein. That way I'm getting a little bit of protein, plus I'm getting something that makes my coffee a little bit more palatable. But I'm on my way to the gym, and I wanted to show you, this is what I put in my water. If you are drinking a gallon of water a day, but you're not putting any kind of salt in your water, then your body is not absorbing it. And that's why you have to pee all the time, is because the water is going right through you and your body isn't utilizing the minerals and things that you need. So I just want to share that with you. I'm not being sponsored by them, and I know a lot of people say this is expensive, don't do it, just put a little table salt in, but I don't want my water to taste salty, and this way it gets a little bit of flavoring and it adds the salt that I need, but I don't feel like I'm drinking the ocean, all right? So I will see you later this afternoon, and please tune in to She Became Visible 513, and you can listen to my podcast about why we should or should not be drinking our protein. So thanks for joining me today.
You're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Give me a full ballerina skirt and a hint of saloon, and I'm on board.
I can't go back.
Welcome to the She Became Visible podcast. I'm your host, Renee Steelman. This podcast is my story. It's your story. It's our story. It's all the stories of all the women who one day knew that it was time to remember who they were, who they are, and stand up and be seen. Well, hello. Hopefully this microphone is working. I've been playing around all day trying to figure out how to put some videos on that I can't download, and I have not quite figured out how to do that yet, but I'm going to try and show them, and I'm going to hope that my microphone picks up the sound until I figure this out. So today we are talking nutrition. And I want to start out by saying I am not a dietitian. I am not a nutritionist. I do not have a doctorate in nutrition. I am just a mom who has paid a lot of attention over the years to the food that we're eating. And you can ask my children. They never had cold cereal for breakfast. They had ground wheat pancakes. Now, I don't know if that was the best thing for them, but everything was a whole food that they were eating. And we were probably an 80-20 family where we tried to eat healthy. And then football games, busy days, we're going through McDonald's like everybody else. But this was in the 80s and the 90s. And I do think food has changed over the years. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about being aware of what's out there and being aware that the food that we're consuming has now been taken over by corporations that are owned by shareholders, and their bottom line is what is important, not nutrition, not our health. It literally is, how can we make these people buy more food? And one of the problems that the food industry is having right now is the fact that people are becoming more and more aware of what they're eating. Things like Ozempic and Wegovy are actually making people eat less. So they are doing a lot of market saturation on telling you how evil these drugs are, because it's scaring the pants off of them that people are actually eating less. And because their appetite is being suppressed, they don't have the desire to go through a fast food drive-through, and that's hitting their bottom line. It's all about bottom line. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But specifically, I want to say that one of the things that I am very proud of myself for is I believe I have a good critical thinking mind. And so I question a lot of things depending on whether it's a health issue or a doctor's advice or something I hear on TV. And even my faith, I questioned. And it's all part of that cognitive dissonance. And it follows us in all areas of our lives. And it's really important for us to, especially nowadays, with the amount of marketing and the amount of media that's out there, we really have to do our homework. So I remember in the 80s when the low fat thing came out. And I remember thinking, oh, this is really strange because they were putting things like a stamp on a pound of hamburger said no carb. I'm like, well, duh. Or they would say, sugar free. And I'm looking at the product and I'm like, well, that doesn't mean it's healthy. Or the big fat free. Remember when the fat free thing was so popular? And so people were eating candy like crazy because it didn't have fat in it. Susan Powder told us that as long as it doesn't have fat in it, we can eat as much as we want to. And I had a girlfriend that had a purse full of gummy bears and cinnamon bears and all kinds of things because she was under the impression that as long as it didn't have fat in it, it was good for you. So there have been a lot of things, especially the more research I've done, the more I've discovered that a lot of this started in the 80s. So I want to start out though with a quick little introduction to a TED Talk that I heard. And I'm just going to play a little snippet of it for you because I want you then to go and listen to it on your own. All right, so let's turn some time over to this fabulous little TED Talk.
Hello. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit of a story, and I'm sure that people who already know me might not even know this about me. But when I was a little girl, I was super into princesses, specifically Wonder Woman and Princess Leia. I was a girl that would skip brownies, wear my underoos and my mom's boots just to watch Wonder Woman and feel empowered by her, showing her strength, her speed, her skill, talking back, which I wasn't allowed to do. And I really felt empowered by these women because they did not stop when they were told to. They wouldn't take no for an answer. So I grew up with the ideal that women could do what they wanted to do as long as they had the drive for it. Yeah. But this ideal was challenged frequently and still is. I was a cross-country runner for most of my life, but when I got to Purdue University, I decided to join the crew team for a bit of a change of pace, but also it meant that I was near the water. And in this group of 8 women, we trained hard. We trained on point. We raced hard. We raced with purpose. We did the same training as the men, the same race schedule as the men. Basically, we were training like men. But there were times when we were flat in the boat, even though we had the same recovery and the same training schedule as the men. And it really kind of started really getting under my skin a bit, going, what's going on? And at the same time, I was in the undergraduate kinesiology program, studying exercise physiology, nutrition, and part of the requirement was to actually be a participant in the labs. For example, this is one that I really remember. It sticks out well. It was me and 2 guys, and we had to run on a treadmill for 2 hours one week, and then the next week do the exact same thing. The first time I did it, I ran, and it was awesome. 2 hours, no issues whatsoever. No water, just people going, I can't believe you're running for 2 hours on the treadmill. The following week, first half an hour was okay, but the last hour and a half felt like 5 years. I was like, what is going on? And we started looking at the results, and it was really interesting to see my results showing that in the first trial, I was using a lot of fat as fuel, which is great because you have an opportunity to go for a long time. But the second trial, I burned through a lot of carbohydrate, and then I was having a really difficult time to fuel myself. And I thought that was interesting, but what was even more interesting is that there was no difference for the guys at all. So I asked, I was like, well, why is this? And the response was, women are an anomaly. So we don't necessarily study women in sport nutrition or exercise science. And I stopped and I looked at myself, and I looked around, and I thought, surely, with 50% or more of the population being female, aren't the men the anomaly and they don't know it yet?
Okay, that was a little preview that I want you to go and look up Dr. Stacy Sims because she has so many really good points. And the reason I wanted to bring her into this first was to recognize that women are not smaller versions of men. We are totally different. I don't see a lot of men podcasters talking about hormonal change as they age. Now, they will talk about testosterone levels, but it is not the same as the menopause that women go through and the changes that women's bodies make monthly. The progesterone, the estrogen, the testosterone, these are constantly changing in women. There is no steadiness in a woman's body. It is always changing, and we are different. Our skin looks different. Our body mass is different. Our fat disposition is different. And I want to point that out. What I don't want you to think, though, is that you can't do the same exercises or eat the same as men. They might be able to eat a little bit more, but they should be eating the same thing that you're eating. And you can probably do the same amount of weight that a lot of men can do. Not a fabulous bodybuilder that's been training for a long time. But when I go to the gym, I see a lot of guys picking up their 20-pound weights and doing bicep curls. I can do a 20, 25 weight bicep curl too. And my biceps don't look like their biceps. So I just want to make that clear in the very beginning because I don't want women to get discouraged, and I want them to understand that the exhaustion that they feel or the energy spurge that they have, so much of that is based on their physiological sense. And also, last week, my podcast was about caregiving. And I have heard and seen a lot of women that were in fabulous shape, but they sacrificed themselves to become a full-time caregiver for an aging parent or a very sick child or a sick or a chronically ill spouse. And because of that, they have had to let their own time go and they have sacrificed their health for that. And I want you to be aware of that as well. And the idea that you can still get up at 4:30 in the morning, even though you've been up with the baby since 1 o'clock, is not the same as listening to Mark Wahlberg say, I get 8 hours of sleep. If I go to bed at 8 o'clock, I'm up at 3 o'clock or, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, good for you, Mark, So please, I want to let that be known from the very beginning. So let's talk about protein shake. The reason I wanted to make this my topic of conversation is because I hate to cook. I don't want to spend any time in the kitchen unless it involves me opening up the refrigerator door. Okay. I have 6 children and I've spent a lot of years having to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I don't want to do that anymore. My husband knows that. He fixes his own food. I've trained him well. And I like to eat things that are quick, fast, and easy. And so protein shakes have been a big part of my diet. Now, the other reason why protein shakes were a big part of my diet is because I am trying to take in my body weight in protein every single day. So trying to get 125 to 130 grams of protein in is not easy. And especially for someone like me that doesn't like to cook, I'm not a big fan of a lot of meat. To me, meat only tastes good when it's covered in some kind of fabulous sauce. And so I don't go out and order a big steak because I just love steak unless there's a sauce that goes on top of it. I would rather have some combo, some fabulous chef's miracle combination of things. I love like a good halibut with some lemon capers or something like that and a fabulous sauce. So meat isn't something that I love. I cannot stand eggs. I will eat a hard-boiled egg quickly if I have to. I fix scrambled eggs, and if I can put maybe a ketchup on it that doesn't have sugar in it, that'll help me scarf it down, but I don't love it. And the idea that I have to eat eggs every day for breakfast is like not going to happen. I just want to grab. I want to grab something. So, but I know the difference between a whole food and a processed food. And I know that a fully processed food is even different than a processed food. Now, let me explain that a little bit. If you're eating a corn on the cob, that's a whole food. If you're eating canned corn or frozen corn, that corn has been processed. And that's not necessarily bad. So when I say processed food, I'm not necessarily talking about frozen vegetables or, frozen meats that you've gotten, but I'm talking about highly processed food, which is food that you cannot make in the kitchen. You don't have the chemicals, you don't have the machinery to make highly processed food. It's the difference between corn on the cob, frozen corn, and corn taco chips. That's the difference. So I don't eat highly processed food. I will occasionally. I'm all for a good Chick-fil-A once in a while, but it's not my normal diet. So I really, really, especially when I was doing a competition and my trainer was trying to put me on a cut diet, and there was no protein powder or mixed protein drinks on that diet. And I was like, oh, I mean, his breakfast was eggs and oatmeal. And I was like, I'm not going to eat oatmeal. I feel very strongly about oatmeal. I feel like it's a grain that isn't good for us, that's just been marketed as some kind of fabulous food, and it's not good for us, and I'm not going to eat it, and I'm not going to eat eggs. What am I going to eat? My trainer was also against dairy. And so I was like, I'm just going to have water for breakfast, I guess, which isn't good. You can't have that and then go to the gym and expect to have the energy. But let's talk about the different pre-made protein shakes that are out there. Now, what I'm not addressing is protein powder, because I do have a couple of protein powders that have less ingredients than these pre-made protein shakes do. Now, this particular protein shake, Lean Body, was rated number 1 by Forbes. When they rated protein shakes, they rated this number 1. So let me break this down for you. This has 270 calories, 40 grams of protein, 9 grams of carbs, and 8 grams of fat in it. It also has sunflower oil, cocoa. It doesn't have a lot of, it doesn't have safflower oil in it, which is really good. And it doesn't have sunflower lecithin in it, which is good, but it does have cellulose gum and carrageenan. And it also has sucralose in it. And it has accelerated sulfane protein in it. So not a lot of really bad things. But my big thing today that we're going to talk about is the danger of consuming a lot of seed oils. And seed oils are something that was kind of introduced in the 80s. And they are now being able to track seed oils down to the problem with obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. And the seed oil manufacturing corporations who invented Crisco and canola oil and all of the beautiful things they told us that we should be using, they have marketed to tell us that using things like butter or ghee or tallow are what's causing heart disease. But actually, science is now telling us something different. So this was number 1 by Forbes, and it doesn't taste bad. All of the products that I'm showing you are chocolate flavored, so they all have cocoa in them. But my problem is it also has the sunflower oil, and it also has the carrageenan in it. Now, let me talk to you before we talk about sunflower oil or seed oils. I want to just say a little thing about the carrageenan. Okay. Some scientists are concerned that food grade carrageenan is also dangerous. This is because various studies dating back to the 1960s show that the substance may degrade and become toxic when it mixes with stomach acid. The medical community is unsure to what extent carrageenan degrades in the digestive system. This means that we do not know if any amount is toxic. It is important to note that no related studies have involved human participants. And I think that's really interesting. One of the other things I read was that things like protein shakes are considered a supplement. I don't know if that's true, but I thought that I read that. Therefore, they're not necessarily regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, which I don't give any credit to anyway, because the Food and Drug Administration is putting Fruit Loops on your table, which are banned in Europe. So, I mean, I don't give them any credibility as something we should be following anyway. But the second drink that Forbes suggested was the Fairlife Core Power. Now, this is the protein drink that I use, and let me tell you how I use it. Now, what this has in it is this has 170 calories, 26 grams of protein, 8 grams of carb, and why didn't I write down the fat? The fat has 4.5 grams of fat in it. It has milk, cocoa, monk fruit, stevia, also carrageenan, a cellulose gel, and maltodextrin and sucralose in it. So those are a lot of things that I don't like, but this is how I use this. In the morning when I have my coffee, and I'm really trying to limit myself to my caffeine only in a morning coffee. I'm trying to use a fair trade organic coffee. And then rather than putting whole milk in it or a cream in it, which I feel is very healthy to do, I decided to start using a protein drink because this also has monk fruit in it and stevia. Therefore, all I have to do is add this to my coffee, and then I get my sweetener and my dairy and a little bit of protein at the same time. So I will usually put some of this in my coffee, and then I will drink the rest of it. And I'm really trying to kind of figure this out. I know that I should be probably just putting in a dairy and a monk fruit or a stevia or a erythritol or something like that in it. We're going to talk about different sweeteners today too. But this is easy. It's easy. And so this is a weakness that I have. Now, the other ones that I looked at were some plant-based protein. And this one was, I think, actually number 3. This one has 180 calories, 20 grams of protein, 8 grams of carb, and 7 grams of fat in it. But listen to what this has in it. And this is where I hate to say this. Please don't hate me. Please don't put out death threats. But this is why the vegan and the plant-based community is garbage. Okay. Listen to the ingredients in this plant-based food. It has pea protein, which is not as effective of a protein, pumpkin seed, flax oil, cane sugar, sunflower oil, safflower oil, cocoa, sunflower lecithin. It has monk fruit. It has guar gum. And so that's a lot of seed oil right from the very beginning. And we're going to talk about seed oil. Okay. The next one is the Orgain. I believe this one was very high on the list as well. And it's not bad. It has 240 calories, 16 grams of protein, 30 carbs in it. So that's a lot of carbs, 7 grams of fat. It also has pea protein. That's where the protein is coming from. And it doesn't have the pumpkin seed, the flax oil, and the cane sugar that the other one had in it. But it does have, it does have cane sugar, and it does have sunflower oil. And it has cocoa, of course. It also uses monk fruit. So it doesn't have a lot in it. It doesn't have as many oils in it as the OWYN, but it does have the sunflower oil. And I want to tell you, and this was something that was very discouraging. A lot of us go to Whole Foods to get our food. And Whole Foods has that beautiful buffet and deli. And you think to yourself, because this is the way it's been marketed, that Whole Foods is there to help us become healthy. But if you stop and look at the ingredients of the food that is on their deli or on their buffet table there, everything is cooked in canola oil. And the reason why they do that is because canola oil is cheap and canola oil is horrible for you. Okay, the next one that we're looking at is Premier. And so Premier has 160 calories, 30 grams of protein, 5 grams of carbs, 3 grams of fat. So it's a little bit lower in fat. And it doesn't have all the oils in it. It does have sunflower lecithin, and it does have cellulose, and it does have a sucralose, soybean oil, acesulfame. I don't know what, I can't even read my own writing. It also has soy and calcium why can't I remember how to pronounce that? The carcinogen in it. So this, I don't know, between the sucralose, the soybean oil, and the sunflower lecithin, I just don't think this is even worth thinking about. So I don't even know. I'm not even looking at the taste. Okay. The one that I don't have is there was another person that did a YouTube evaluation of protein powders, and she recommended a protein, and she just said, this is the best and it's the healthiest. And I went, oh, good. Cause I want my cake and eat it too. I'm really searching for a healthy pre-made protein shake that is like, finally, this is fabulous. And obviously I'm not going to find it, but she suggested one called, I think it was Jocolot. And so I bought it, and then I looked at it and I'm like, this is not healthy. This isn't any better. She must have been sponsored by the corporation. Okay. So the last one we're looking at is Muscle Milk. And this one has 170 calories, 25 grams of protein, 11 grams of carb, 5 grams of fat. It has sunflower oil in it as well. It also has the cellulose, the carrageenan, and the protein comes from milk protein, and it also has sucralose in it and the calcium carrageenan in it. So, they all have roughly the same ingredients. I feel as though the core, because it's basically chocolate milk. It's basically chocolate milk. And so it does have, like I said, it does have the carrageenan in it, which is a thickener. And, but they are claiming that the carrageenan causes inflammation. And, inflammation is the reason why we have a lot of autoimmune diseases out there. And so, the maltodextrin is really bad if you're trying to manage your blood sugar, and it does have that in it. And so, but it's made to help absorb the protein. That's why they put it in there. So that's kind of the breakdown of the protein powder. So let's get into of why protein shakes might not be the best thing for us to be eating. So is it bad for you? It's considered a dietary supplement, and therefore it's not regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. It is common for many protein powders to contain high levels of heavy metals, BPA. Chemicals in protein powders often contain high amounts of sugar. Well, we've looked at the amount of sugar in these, and sometimes they'll hide the sugar with sucralose and things like that. Whey is a protein that is isolated from milk, and people with allergies or who are sensitive can have some bowel problems and some intestinal issues. Other types of protein powders can be derived from plant-based sources, but they include a lot of soy and pea and processed protein powders. And so that's why those aren't necessarily the best. So this is the interesting thing. This is a kind of the typical McDonald's or hamburger. What does it have in it? It has in sunflower oil, soybean oil, canola oil. You think you're eating 100% beef in your hamburger, but it's actually been mixed in with canola oil. They're not even addressing the fake cheese that's on there, but the sunflower oil that's in your, they're pointing that to the soybean oil, to your bun. And it's just so interesting. Let's show a little bit of that slide, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it. I'm going to turn my microphone to see if you can hear it. This is very interesting.
Mechanical engineer William Osmond was trying to figure out how to make use of a common waste product, sawdust. A walk in the park left him thinking, people eat plants all the time, so why not eat trees? Osmond.
Okay, just a second. I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I'm doing this correct. So I am going to share my screen and do this over again. There we go. Okay, here we go. And go.
Decided to use sawdust as a cheap alternative for a food ingredient. Considering the American food most resembling an actual piece of wood is the Rice Krispie treat, Osmond decided to test just how much of the crisp rice he could replace with sawdust without consumers noticing. Incredibly, he found you could replace 15% of the rice with sawdust without too noticeable of a difference in the final treat.
No idea. No way.
That's indistinguishable.
I have literally no idea there's sawdust in here. That's amazing.
Osmond's switcheroo was very clever, but pales in comparison to the gigantic switcheroo pulled on our global food supply over the past 100 years that would lead to today's people switching out a very common type of food that we had eaten for thousands of years in favor of something edible, but foreign to the human diet, and as I'll argue here, maybe even toxic: vegetable oil.
Mazola corn oil.
Crisco oil?
Vegetable corn and sunflower oil.
Low-cost vegetable oil is in everything from packaged foods to restaurants and kitchens across the world.
Vegetable oil. Canola oil. Vegetable oil. Canola oil.
As consumption of vegetable oils exploded, rates of obesity and diabetes happened to explode with it. To understand why some doctors and scientists are saying vegetable oils make us fat and diseased, we need to take a look at some history, why some animals live longer than others, some tapes hidden in a basement, how vegetable oils are actually made, and what happens in your body when you eat them. Let's start in 1829. Thanks to new machinery, it became practical to make use of the leftover garbage from cotton production, cotton seeds. The oil extracted from cottonseed could be used as fuel for lamps or lubricant for machinery. In the early 1880s, Thomas Hudnut invented a mechanical way to extract oil from corn germ. Up until then, corn germ was a byproduct that corn refiners threw away. In 1898, corn oil started to be used as commercial cooking oil, and in 1902, the Hudnut mills were selling 36 million gallons of corn oil per year. In 1911, the soap maker Procter & Gamble came out with a new product, crystallized cottonseed oil. Crisco looked a lot like the common cooking fat, lard. Before 1900 or so, everyone used virtually 100% animal fats to cook. But Procter & Gamble figured their newer, cheaper product Crisco looked a lot like lard, so why not get people to eat Crisco instead? They launched a massive marketing campaign presenting their cottonseed oil product as the newer and cleaner cooking fat that made cheap, better-tasting foods. In 1911, Procter & Gamble spent about $5 million worth of today's money to advertise Crisco.
Okay, how many of you grew up with Crisco? How many of you remember having that can of Crisco on your kitchen counter? My mother used it all the time. And so you can see, and this continues to be done with all of our food. It's the idea that they can take a product that is cheap, that was used for something else, and then they think, how can I utilize this product? It's kind of like the anti-vegetation chemicals that were used in Vietnam, and now we're using it on our food and in our yards. Our children are playing in it, and thank you, Monsanto. So the same thing is going on with our food industry. And lard and butter and tallow were all demonized, and they were marketed to us as foods that were causing heart disease and obesity, when in actuality, there was no such thing as those diseases before. So let's add, I'm going to get rid of this one. Oh, nope, I don't want to do that. Okay, so let me show you another, where'd it go? Okay, so let's talk. So So I want you to do a little bit of research on your own so that this isn't a 4-hour podcast. But we're going to move on from seed oils and from chemicals. And there are so many oils out there. I want you to be really aware that when you pick up a bottle of olive oil, you really need to look at the ingredients, because there's a very high possibility that that bottle of olive oil doesn't even contain olive oil, or it's going to contain a very small amount, and it's been mixed with canola oil or some kind of seed oil. So the problem with these protein shakes is the seed oils that are in it and also the sugars. So let's talk about the sugar now. So I'm going to do another share screen, and let's go here and let's listen to this.
Now we've talked about artificial sweeteners, natural sweeteners, and alternative sugars. Now, do these items really help to lose weight and improve insulin and glucose? Now, number 10 is allulose. You may have heard it's a game changer. Hi, friends. Looking for the healthiest sweetener to replace sugar? Let's take a deep dive into the 10 most popular sweeteners on the market and talk about how they really affect your health, your blood sugars, and in the end, I'm going to talk about a rising star allulose and give you my choice on the best sweetener to use. Now, number 1 is stevia, derived from the leaves of the Stevia rhomboideana plant. This is a high-intensity sweetener that has 0 calories and is 400 times sweeter than sugar. Now, if you've ever baked with it, you may have discovered that the food was harder to bite, bitter, and had a strong aftertaste. Don't try to use it to ferment or pickle foods either. It won't produce the right fermentation products that one desires when you're pickling or fermenting foods. Supposedly, stevia doesn't raise your blood sugar. That's what they say, but I'm going to show you some surprising effects on your blood sugars a little later. Now, you can buy stevia as a whole leaf powder, which is less sweet, or buy it as an extract in powder form or liquid form. 1/8 of a teaspoon of stevia extract is equivalent to 1 tablespoon of stevia leaf, which is equivalent to half a cup of sugar in sweetness. However, the whole leaf has not been approved by the FDA for its use in food. Now, I've tried stevia, and it has an aftertaste that's described as bitter. The sweetness is due to 3 compounds: ribania, ribondioside D, and stevioside. Now, ribondioside has a less bitter and less metallic taste than the others. Now, there's another compound called
I'm fast forwarding here because I want to go, here we go.
1980s as safe to consume if you limit it to 50 milligrams per kilograms of body weight daily. So for a person weighing about 150 pounds, you can consume 19 cans of Diet Coke and chew 270 pieces of Trident sugar-free gums a day, and that would be considered safe. That's a great way to erode your enamel and to get TMJ pain. Aspartate is actually a dipeptide, 2 amino acids linked together, aspartic acid and phenylalanine as methyl esters. Now, when you eat it, aspartame breaks down into 3 pieces: aspartic acid, phenylalanine, and methanol. Methanol metabolizes into formaldehyde. Have you ever smelled formaldehyde? Formaldehyde is a known human carcinogen and is literally an embalming agent. Do you remember in 2020, there was a run on PPE and hand sanitizer? Well, some shady companies introduced hand sanitizers that should have had ethanol. This one has ethyl alcohol, or it has isopropyl alcohol. But instead, they put methanol, which caused thousands of deaths all over the world, including a few people here in the United States because they drank it. Methanol and formaldehyde are highly toxic with high mortality and morbidity, and it can cause blindness, heart and brain damage when ingested. Inhalation and absorption through the skin has little toxicity, but methanol is rapidly absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract in less than 10 minutes and reaches a peak in plasma concentration in 30 minutes to an hour. For some reason, people fall.
Okay. So I want you to go and listen to her YouTube as well. And of all of the sweeteners, basically when you get through to the very end, she is saying that fruit sugar, fructose, that comes, she says, I love watermelon, any kind of natural fructose is probably the only sweetener that we should be using. And I've heard a lot of people talk about stevia having an aftertaste. It's really sweet. But the main thing that I took from hers and many other YouTube videos that I have watched is that aspartame is a definite no. Absolutely not. You should not be ingesting aspartame at all. It kind of goes back to the sweet and low and the early 60s sweeteners that were brought in that have now been shown to actually be damaging our bodies and our brains. And it's not just oh, well, a little bit'll do. It's always a matter of who was it tested on, rats or humans, blah, blah, blah. Like she says, there's a lot of natural substances like cyanide that are also poisonous. And aspartame falls into one of those. So that is something that should be avoided at all costs. So basically what I'm saying is, I know it's hard. It's so frustrating because the marketing is so intense. And as busy mothers, as busy people, we want to be able to just grab a protein bar or grab, some kind of a protein drink and make our way to the gym. And I say, you know what, occasionally I would rather probably have something like this than to go through McDonald's. And when you're hungry, or at the end of the day, if you're just 20 grams short of your protein level, sometimes I'll justify it that way. But it's really, it's another processed food. And if you really want to eat whole foods, it's basically your protein, your carb from sweet potatoes or rice. And we're not even going to get into whether rice is good for you or not, or, anything like that, because it's so complicated. You have to find something that works for you. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention because it's something that I'm struggling with myself. So I hope that's been really helpful for you today. I really am encouraging you, though, to stop dieting, stop thinking low fat, stop thinking sugar free, stop thinking, just start thinking that you need to move your body, you need to feed it whole foods, and you need to start paying attention to your protein levels, especially as we age. Women, I also want to encourage you to stop doing the intense cardio. I have been doing cardio since 1983. I started running in 1983 after I had my 5th child, and I lost weight. I lost my baby weight, and I got my body down to a weight that I liked, but I had absolutely no muscle definition or strength at all. It was literally just a thinner version of my old body. And that's what I had been fighting my whole life since. And that 1983 baby is now 40, 41. And I'm just now discovering that the only thing that has changed my body is strength training. And I hardly do. The only cardio that I do is I walk. I try to get 10,000 steps in at least 3 or 4 times a week. I don't push myself to think that I have to do it every day. If I've spent a couple hours in the gym, and when I say a couple hours, I want you to know that there is rest time in between every set that adds into your time spent at the gym. And so it's not like you're just doing a HIIT class for 2 hours. You're not doing that. But that's the only thing that has actually changed my body. And I feel pretty good about that at the age of 70. So my basic thing is to keep my muscle longevity and to keep my movement and my mobility as I age. Now, I wanted to say something else about these protein drinks. Probably the worst protein drinks are the ones suggested by the Diabetes Association. The Ensure is garbage. If you look at the ingredients in Ensure, it is garbage. What's the other one? Atkins, the Atkins shake, it's garbage. I didn't even buy those to even show you. And I remember listening to a YouTube, and one of these wonderful doctors said, he said, if you want to know what not to eat as someone who's either pre-diabetic or has already been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, look at the American Diabetes website, and everything that they say on there is what foods you should avoid. And I think that's so ironic. In fact, when my mother was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which does run very prevalent in my family, I said, well, has the doctor suggested that you make some different food choices? And she said, no, he didn't say anything. So I don't know if that's true or whether she just didn't want to be held accountable or what the deal was. But anyway, thank you for joining me. I hope this information has been very helpful for you. And I look forward to our next get together with She Became Visible. I hope you're finding this information on my website as valuable for you, finding out who you are, becoming your best self, becoming visible, claiming back your autonomy and your talents and sharing them with the world as an individual. I hope that's what you're doing. Please subscribe. I'm not asking for donations. I don't have a paywall. I just need you to subscribe and share. If there's a particular podcast that you like, share it with your neighbors. So thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you again in a couple of days, actually. Bye-bye.